The human brain produces a distinct electrical signature 47 seconds before making any significant decision. I discovered this myself during my third year at Johns Hopkins, though the journals credited my supervisor. Right now, watching 5 separate neural feeds cascade across my monitor, I can see Commander Walker is about to speak 16 seconds before he opens his mouth. 2 minutes to touchdown, people. Foster, how are we looking? Cognitive baselines are holding steady, I tell him, though what I'm really thinking is that his stress markers are spiking in a perfectly predictable pattern I documented 6 months ago during simulation. The man operates like clockwork, reliable, mechanical, and utterly transparent to someone who knows what to look for. The Janus shudders, a controlled deceleration that makes my stomach briefly consider relocating to my throat. On my screen, 5 neural patterns spike in perfect synchronization. Fear response, adrenaline cascade. The ancient mammalian brain screaming that falling from the sky is generally fatal. Then training kicks in and the patterns smooth out. This is why I'm here. Not for the historic achievement or the frontier spirit or whatever Walker wrote in his command statement. I'm here because 6 humans trapped in a tin can for 9 months, then isolated on a dead world for 2 years, represent the ultimate controlled study in cognitive adaptation. Every synaptic firing, every stress response, every dream and nightmare, I'll map it all. The company psychologist who went to Mars and returned with the operating manual for the human mind under extreme isolation. Visual contact in 10 seconds, Helen announces from the pilot's seat, her voice steady despite the white-knuckled grip I can see she has on the manual override stick. She won't need it. The computer has performed flawlessly for 9 months. But the human brain demands the illusion of control. Erich is muttering something in German to himself, probably a prayer, though he claims to be an atheist. Ben has his eyes closed from what he calls experiencing the physics of atmospheric entry. Bailey is stone still, her hand resting on the medical kit like she expects us to crash and need immediate triage. Visual contact, Helen says, and there's something wrong with her voice. The neural feeds don't help. They're showing me electrical activity, but not meaning, like trying to understand a conversation by watching someone's throat muscles move. I unstrap myself, which is definitely against protocol. But Walker is leaning forward in his seat and doesn't stop me. The viewport is small, designed more for cameras than human eyes, but I can see enough. Red horizon, rust-colored regolith, the massive shadow of Olympus Mons in the distance. And directly below us, exactly where we're supposed to land, exactly where we're supposed to build humanity's first permanent foothold on another world. That's not possible, Walker says. And for the first time in 9 months, I hear something in his voice that doesn't fit any of my models. Mars Base Alpha sits on the Martian surface, complete and operational. Solar panels deployed in perfect arrays. The habitat modules I memorized from 1,000 schematics arranged in the exact configuration we planned. The navigation beacon we were supposed to install next week is already blinking steadily, guiding us home to a home we haven't built yet. My mind is already racing through possibilities. Secret Chinese mission, corporate black project, shared hallucination brought on by 9 months of cosmic radiation. Each theory collapses under its own weight. The base below us isn't similar to our plans. It's identical. Every strut, every joint, every panel exactly where our blueprint specified. The landing legs deploy. 20 seconds. 10. The base grows larger, more undeniably real. I can see our own mission logo painted on the side of the primary habitat. "Foster, strap in," Walker says, but I can't move. I'm watching our neural patterns on my screen spike into territories I've never seen before. The Janus touches down with barely a tremor, computers handling the landing. The engines cut out. "Okay," Walker says, and I document the way his voice cracks slightly on the second syllable. "Okay, nobody moves, nobody does anything until we understand what we're looking at. But I already know we won't understand, not with the tools I brought. I came here to study how isolation changes the human mind, armed with theories and monitors, and a fundamental belief that consciousness is just electricity and chemistry arranged in patterns I can decode. The base, sitting 50 meters away, suggests that my entire framework, maybe our entire understanding of reality, is catastrophically wrong. "David," Helen says quietly, and I realize she's the only one who uses my first name. "Your monitors. Look at your monitors." I turn back to my screens. The neural feeds are showing all patterns, including Walker's rigid command architecture and Ben's analytical loops, synchronizing, identical. Different brains producing the exact same electrical signature, beat for beat, wave for wave. Then my own reflection in the dark part of the screen catches my eye, and I see what I couldn't feel. My face wearing an expression of recognition, as if some part of me, below conscious thought, remembers this moment. As if we've been here before. The airlock cycles with the exact sound I heard 1,000 times in simulation, except we shouldn't have an airlock to cycle. Walker goes first, command privilege, followed by the security team. Then the rest of us filter through in rough departmental order. I count heads without thinking about it. A habit from the psychological workshops where losing track of anyone meant failing the exercise. Engineers, medical staff, bioscience, communications, all here. All accounted for. All walking into a base that can't exist. The interior is perfect. Not new perfect, but lived-in perfect. Exactly the way Alpha should look after 2 weeks of habitation. The temperature is a steady 21 Celsius. The air smells of that particular mixture of plastics and metals that becomes background noise in any space station or habitat. Someone has even put the mission photos on the rec room wall. "Biosecurity sweep," Walker orders, his voice carrying through the helmet comms even though we could probably breathe the air in here. Nobody removes their suit until we clear the atmosphere. Martinez, Patterson, check the reactor. Larson, take your team and verify life support. Everyone else, hold position in central hab. I should hold position. Instead, I drift toward the command module, drawn by the glow of active monitors. The workstations are powered, logged in, waiting. My workstation. I know it's mine because there's a coffee ring on the desk exactly where I always put my mug. That bad habit of placing it too close to the keyboard. "Foster, what are you doing?" Walker asks. But he's following me, and so is Ben and then Helen. And soon enough, half the crew is crowding into command while the other half pretends to run their safety checks. I sit down at my station. The chair has already been adjusted to my specifications. Lumbar support, armrest height, the works. When I touch the keyboard, the system recognizes my biometrics instantly. "Welcome back, Dr. Foster," the interface says. "You have 17 unread priority logs." My hands move without conscious thought. Medical training overriding the paralysis. Open the logs. Check the timestamps. The first one is dated 3 weeks ago. Mission Sol 1, today. But the log itself is wrong. Personal log Dr. David Foster, Sol 15. The hallucinations are becoming more structured. Walker insists we continue following protocol, but I've observed synchronized episodes across multiple crew members. The phenomenon appears to be... I stop reading aloud when I realize the room has gone silent. "Play the security footage," Ben says quietly. He's leaning over my shoulder. Command module, Sol 1. The screen flickers. I watch myself. That specific way I favor my left leg when I'm tired. The unconscious habit of touching my temple when I'm thinking. Walk into this same command module. I watch myself sit down at this exact workstation and begin typing. Personal log, Dr. David Foster, Sol 1. Successful landing at the designated coordinates. The crew is adapting well to... The me on the screen stops mid-sentence. He frowns, looks at his hands. Then he says, "This is wrong. We've done this before." Walker reaches past me and fast-forwards. Sol 2, Sol 5, Sol 10. In each one we're here, living in this base, following our mission parameters. By Sol 12, the crew on the screen is showing signs of serious psychological strain. By Sol 18, there's a confrontation in the mess hall. I watch myself trying to sedate someone, while Walker shouts orders. Nobody's following. Saul, 21. The final log. The screen shows the command module, empty except for Ben. He's standing at the primary console, typing frantically. If anyone finds this, we've identified a pattern. Every 21 souls, there's an energy spike that corresponds with... The screen whites out. When it returns, the timestamp has reset. Sol 1. And we're watching ourselves walk into the command module again. The exact same movements, the exact same words. Except this time my recorded self stops at a different point and says, "We've been here before. I can feel it." "Turn it off," someone says. But I keep scrolling. There are more iterations, more cycles, each one lasting exactly 21 souls before that whiteout, that reset. I count 7 complete cycles before the logs begin. 7 times we've landed, discovered this base, lived here, lost our minds, and then... Then what? Helen asks, and I realize I've been thinking out loud. Then we forget, I tell her, still scrolling through timestamps. We forget and start over. Walker's hand comes down on my shoulder, the grip tight enough to feel through the suit. "Stop! Everyone stop!" His command voice is back, the one that got him selected over 40 other candidates. "This is a psychological operation. Someone, probably the Chinese, possibly private sector, built this to destroy our mission. The videos are deepfakes, the logs are fabricated. Foster, I need you to figure out how they're doing this. What combination of drugs, environmental factors, or technology could create this effect?" I turn to look at him through our helmet visors. His face is composed, controlled, but there's something in his eyes. "Sir," I say carefully, "the neural synchronization we experienced during landing can be induced, has been induced. You're the psychologist, Foster. Tell me how someone would fake this." The rest of the crew is watching us. Some are still staring at the screen showing our past. Others are looking at the walls, the equipment, the coffee mug on my desk. Everyone waiting for me to explain away the impossible. I close the logs and open the medical database. My codes work. My personal files are all there. 9 months of observations from the journey, psychological profiles of the crew, even my private notes that I never uploaded to the main system. Then I find something that makes the rest of it seem almost rational by comparison. "Commander," I say, my voice sounding distant and professional, like I'm giving a presentation at a conference instead of standing in a base on Mars. "According to these files, I've already completed psychological evaluations for the first 3 weeks of surface operations. Detailed ones. In my handwriting, my methodology, my exact phrasing." I open one at random. It's about Navigator Evans's adjustment to Martian gravity, complete with cognitive test scores and recommendation for modified duty schedules. Evans, who's standing 10 feet away in his EVA suit, having just landed on Mars for what he believes is the first time. "There's more," Ben says from another workstation. He's pulled up the science logs. Geological surveys, atmospheric readings, soil samples, all dated from the past 3 weeks, all showing my analysis patterns, my notation style. Communications specialist Park speaks up from across the room. "I've got transmission logs to Earth, routine check-ins, all sent, all acknowledged by Houston." Hayes straightens, and when he speaks, he's not talking to me anymore. He's addressing everyone, his voice carrying through the comms to whatever teams are still pretending to check systems that we apparently already know are working. "Listen carefully, all of you. Until we understand what we're dealing with, we proceed as if this is day 1 of surface operations. We follow mission protocols. We document everything. Nobody goes outside alone. Nobody touches anything they don't understand. And nobody," his voice hardens, "nobody panics. Foster, you're with me. The rest of you, continue the sweep. I want every inch of this base examined and reported." As the others disperse, Walker leans in close enough that only I can hear him through proximity comms. "I don't care if we've been here before," he says quietly. "I don't care if we've been here 100 times. You're going to find me a rational explanation for this. Because the alternative He stops. The alternative is that we've lost our minds before we even started, and I will not accept that. Not on my mission. Not on my watch. I nod. But I'm thinking about that whiteout on Sol 21. About the energy spike Ben mentioned before the screen went blank. What if we're not crazy? I ask him. What if this is real? Walker looks at me, and in his eyes I see the same fear that's probably in mine. Not fear of dying on Mars, or even fear of going insane, but fear of something worse. Being trapped in a story that's already been written. Actors in a play we don't remember auditioning for. Then you'd better find a way to make it unreal, he says. Because according to those logs, we have 21 sols before we find out what happens next, and Dr. Foster. He pauses at the doorway. Whatever that whiteout is, whatever the reset means, I don't think we want to experience it. Not again. He leaves me alone with the monitors and the logs and the growing certainty that my expertise in the human mind is about to become either completely useless or the only thing standing between us and whatever nightmare we've apparently lived through 7 times before. Sol 4. I've been living in my office surrounded by printouts of the logs because the screens give me headaches now. Too much cross-referencing between what was, what is, and what will be. The rest of the crew has settled into routine, some embracing the pre-built base with relief, others treating every surface like it might electrocute them. Groups cluster in the mess hall, conversations dying whenever someone new enters. The geological team keeps bringing in samples that, according to the logs, they already analyzed weeks ago. The medical staff runs diagnostics on equipment that's already perfectly calibrated. We're all playing house in someone else's home, except that someone is us. Walker has posted the duty rosters, the same ones from the logs, though he claims it's coincidence, just following standard protocol. I don't argue. I've learned to recognize the particular tension in his jaw when he's close to snapping, and we're all walking that edge. Foster, I need you in environmental. Eric's voice crackles through the comm. I find him in the mechanical bay with half his engineering team, all of them staring at the primary water reclamation unit like it might sprout teeth. The metal housing is open, revealing the sophisticated reverse osmosis system that turns our recycled urine and Martian permafrost into something drinkable. It's beautiful in its efficiency. Israeli design, modified by SpaceX, improved by Eric himself during training. Look at this, he says, pointing to a component I vaguely recognize as a filtration valve. According to the logs, this fails today. Sol 4, 1430 hours. Catastrophic seal rupture. 40 liters of unprocessed waste backs up into the secondary system. I check my tablet. It's 1426. So you're here to prevent it, I say. That's the thing. Eric pulls the component free with practiced ease. His team leans in as he holds it up to the work light. Look at it. Tell me what you see. The valve is pristine. Not new, it shows the slight scoring of normal use, but there's no sign of wear on the seal, no stress fractures or degradation. Eric produces a testing device, runs the diagnostic, green across the board. Perfect working condition, he announces. The seal integrity is at 98%. It shouldn't fail for another 2,000 hours of operation, minimum. Then it won't fail, Larson says from behind him. She's the senior environmental engineer, 15 years of experience keeping the ISS running. We've prevented it. We saw the future and changed it. Eric shakes his head. The logs also say I inspected it before the failure, that I found nothing wrong. He looks at me. What's that thing you're always saying about self-fulfilling prophecies? The valve in his hand makes a sound like a gunshot. The seal splits perfectly along an invisible seam, black fluid spraying across Eric's chest. Alarms shriek as the system detects the pressure loss. Larson is already hitting the emergency shutoff while 2 other engineers scramble for the backup valve. But I'm not moving. I'm staring at the destroyed component in Eric's hand. The seal didn't wear out or crack from pressure, it just split, as if reality itself decided that at 1430 on Sol 4, This valve fails, regardless of its physical condition. Get the backup online. Larson orders, and training takes over. The team drilled this exact failure dozens of times. Within 3 minutes, the backup valve is installed. The system is running, and everyone is catching their breath. Except me. Because I'm looking at Eric's hands as he installs the replacement, and I know exactly how he's going to position the wrench. Not from watching him before, but from doing it myself. My hands remember the weight of the tool, the specific angle needed to clear the housing, the way you have to brace your left knee against the lower panel for leverage. David? Eric notices me staring. You okay? I reach for the wrench. He hands it over, confused, and I demonstrate the exact technique I've never learned. A quarter turn, reposition, another quarter turn, then a full rotation once the threads catch. My muscle memory is perfect. How do you know that? Eric asks quietly. I don't know, I say, but that's not quite true. Because now I can almost see it. A ghost image, like a double exposure. My hands on this same wrench. Eric beside me saying something about German engineering. Someone laughing in the background. But the memory has no context. No before or after. It just exists. Disconnected. The intercom crackles. Environmental team, please report. We're showing a pressure anomaly in the primary water system. Already handled, Larson responds. Valve failure at 14:30, exactly as predicted. The last word comes out bitter. There's a pause, then Walker's voice, carefully controlled. Copy that. Foster, report to command when you're finished there. But I'm not finished. I'm staring at the ruined valve, at the perfect split, and feeling more memories trying to surface. The way the backup valve will need adjustment in 3 days. The optimal setting for the filtration system that we haven't discovered yet, but will. Stop, I say out loud, and Eric's team looks at me with expressions ranging from concern to fear. I'm gripping the wrench hard enough that my knuckles are white. Maybe you should sit down, someone suggests. Rodriguez from life support, I think. Though the names are starting to blur with other versions of themselves. The logs, I manage. Do they say anything about me having an episode, right now? Eric's already pulling up his tablet, scrolling through the Sol 4 entries. His face goes pale. Sol 4, 1435. Following the valve failure, Dr. Foster experienced what he described as a temporal dissociative episode. He claimed to remember performing repairs he'd never made. A temporal dissociative episode, I say. That's what I'd call it, avoiding the real question. Which is, Eric asks, whether I'm remembering the future or the past. I set down the wrench carefully. Whether any of us are living this for the first time, or just forgetting that we've done it before. The environmental team exchanges glances. Someone starts to speak, then stops. We're all thinking the same thing, but nobody wants to say it. If the valve failed exactly as predicted, despite being in perfect condition, then we're not preventing anything. We're not changing anything. We're just following a script that's already been written. There's more, Eric says quietly, still reading from his tablet. According to this, on Sol 4, after the valve incident, you'll go back to your office and write a report theorizing that we're experiencing what you call causal determinism. Do I ask. What else do I say? That's where the entry ends. But there's a note added later in your handwriting. The memory episodes will get worse. Don't trust what you remember. Don't trust what you forget. The only thing you can trust is... He stops. Is what? The entry's corrupted or deleted. It just ends mid-sentence. I feel it then. A pressure behind my eyes like the beginning of a migraine. Images flashing. Me writing that report. The exact words I'll use. The way the light will fall across my desk at 1600 hours. The sound someone will make walking past my door. Thompson from Geological, favoring his left foot because he twisted it yesterday, or will twist it tomorrow, or twisted it 3 weeks ago in a timeline we don't remember. I need to go, I tell them. already moving toward the door. "David," Eric calls after me. "The logs, do they say what happens next?" I pause in the doorway, my hand on the frame exactly where I know there's a small dent from where someone hit it in frustration. "According to the pattern," I say without turning around, "in about 6 hours, someone else will remember something they shouldn't. Then another person tomorrow. By Sol 10, half the crew will be experiencing these episodes. By Sol 15, we'll all be questioning which memories are real." "And by Sol 21? Larson asks. I finally turn to look at them. These engineers and technicians who fix things, who solve problems, who believe in cause and effect and rational solutions. In 3 weeks, according to the logs, some of them will be catatonic. Others will be violent. At least one will try to destroy the base to break the loop. Sol 21, I say carefully, we find out what the reset means. As I walk back through the HAB modules, passing clusters of crew members who fall silent as I approach, I try to focus on what I know versus what I remember. But the distinction is already blurring. I remember the taste of tomorrow's breakfast. I know the conversation I'll have with Walker in 17 minutes. I remember that somewhere in this base, Ben is probably already running calculations, trying to find a mathematical explanation for our situation. He'll find one too. The logs say so. They also say that his explanation will make things much, much worse. I reach my office and sit at my desk, placing my hands on the keyboard. Without thinking, I begin typing. Personal log, Dr. David Foster, Sol 4. Following the predicted valve failure at 14:30, I experienced what I can only describe as a temporal dissociative episode. I stop. Stare at the words. I've become the thing I've studied my entire career, a mind that cannot trust its own perceptions, memories that feel both foreign and fundamental, consciousness trapped between what is, what was, and what will be. The pressure behind my eyes increases, more images flooding in, faces twisted in fear, someone screaming about breaking the pattern, Walker standing at an airlock with his hand on the manual override, Ben writing equations on every surface he can find, the number 21 circled again and again. I close my eyes and try to remember my training, my techniques for controlling invasive thoughts. But the thoughts aren't invasive. They're native. They're mine. When I open my eyes, I've written 3 pages of notes I don't remember typing. At the bottom are the words, "The only thing you can trust is that you chose to forget." I stare at the message and feel the last of my professional detachment crumble. I'm not studying this phenomenon, I'm trapped in it. And somewhere, in a part of my mind I can't quite access, I know exactly how this ends. The question is whether I'll remember in time to change it, or if remembering is exactly what causes it to happen. Sol 8. The rec room at 2200 hours, most of the crew asleep or pretending to be. I'm here because the logs say I'm here, meeting with a small group that's trying to make sense of our situation. It's become a nightly ritual. Those of us who can't sleep gathering to compare notes, to share the memories that don't belong to us yet. Ben arrives exactly when I expect him to, carrying his tablet and a coffee that he'll nurse for the next hour without drinking. He's been different these past few days. Not frightened like the rest of us, but energized, almost euphoric. He sits across from me with the particular smile of someone who's solved a puzzle no one else understands. "I've been analyzing the prediction accuracy," he says without preamble. "Every single event in the logs, the valve failure, Martinez's fall yesterday, the communication array glitch this morning, they're not just accurate, they're perfect. Down to the microsecond." "We know," Helen says from her corner, where she's been sketching the base layout over and over, each drawing slightly different, as if she's trying to capture all the versions she remembers. "That's the problem." "No." Ben leans forward, his eyes bright with something that makes me professionally uncomfortable. "That's the beauty of it, don't you see? We're experiencing perfect determinism, pure causality without uncertainty. It's physically impossible, yet here we are, living proof that the universe can exist in a state of absolute predictability. We're living proof that we're trapped, I counter. This isn't a physics experiment, Ben. People are suffering. Rodriguez hasn't left her bunk in 2 days. Khan thinks his wife on Earth is receiving messages from a version of him that doesn't exist yet. But she is, Ben says, pulling up his tablet. Look at this. I've been monitoring our telemetry uploads. Every data packet we send to Earth matches exactly with the logs from 3 weeks ago. We're not sending new information. We're sending the same information we already sent in a future that's already happened. It's beautiful. Beautiful? Eric enters the room, and there's something in his hand, a piece of machinery I don't recognize. You think this nightmare is beautiful? Ben's expression doesn't change. From a scientific perspective, yes. We're observing something that should be impossible, a localized region where entropy doesn't increase, where information flows backward, where cause and effect become circular. We're inside a closed time-like curve, or something analogous to it. We're inside a prison, Eric says, setting the component on the table, and I can prove it. He turns the part over, revealing a serial number and manufacture date. This is from the primary reactor's cooling system. According to the maintenance logs, I've replaced this exact component 3 times in previous cycles. Same serial number each time. But this part is brand new. Never been replaced. Never been worn out. But the logs show me replacing it on Sol 6 of 3 different cycles. Each time because of wear damage that would take years to accumulate. I went back and checked every replaced component mentioned in the logs. They're all factory new. Every single one. Fascinating, Ben breathes, reaching for the component. The physical evidence contradicts the documented history. The loop preserves certain physical states while allowing others to progress. There must be selection criteria. Stop. I stand up, the movement sharp enough that everyone turns to look at me. Just stop. You're doing exactly what the logs say you'll do. Sol 8, Ben Carter begins developing what he calls the deterministic paradise theory. You become obsessed with understanding the rules instead of breaking them. Ben's smile doesn't falter. And according to those same logs, you try to stop me. We have this exact conversation. I show you the math, you reject it. Eric sides with you and Walker, he checks his tablet. Walker arrives in approximately 40 seconds to shut down your investigation. We all turn toward the door. The seconds tick by. At exactly 40 seconds, Walker enters, still in his day uniform despite the hour. Dr. Foster, he says formally, we need to discuss your recent activities. You've been spreading panic. Half the crew is experiencing what you've termed temporal dissociation. People are afraid to perform basic tasks because they think they're following a script. Morale is collapsing. Morale is collapsing because we're trapped in a temporal loop, I say. Ignoring it won't. We don't know what we're trapped in. Walker steps closer, and I notice the rest of the security team hovering in the corridor. What we have is an anomalous situation that requires careful, methodical investigation, not wild theories that send people into psychological spirals. The evidence is contradictory and inconclusive. Effective immediately, you're to cease all research into these temporal theories. Focus on your actual job, keeping this crew psychologically stable. I feel the words bubbling up, the exact words from the logs. You can't suppress the truth just because it scares you. But I stop myself. If everything is predetermined, if we're following a script, then the only freedom might be in the small deviations. Instead, I say, what are you afraid of, Mark? The use of his first name breaks protocol, breaks the pattern. His jaw tightens. I'm afraid of losing this crew to mass delusion. No. I step closer. You're afraid it's real. You're afraid that all your training, all your protocols, all your command authority means nothing if we're just recurring. That's why you won't look at the evidence. The evidence, Ben interjects, still smiling that terrible smile, supports my theory. We're not trapped. We're preserved, like insects in amber, except the amber is space-time itself. Shut up, Ben, Eric says quietly. No, let him talk, Walker says, turning to Ben. Dr. Carter, you have a different interpretation? I do. Ben stands, tablet in hand. We're experiencing a localized phenomenon, possibly triggered by our FTL drive interacting with Mars's magnetic field anomalies. It's created a stable temporal loop, a four-dimensional standing wave where events replay with perfect fidelity. It's not a prison. It's a natural phenomenon. The most beautiful natural phenomenon ever discovered. And you don't want to escape it, I say. You want to study it, to preserve it. Ben meets my eyes. Why would we escape the greatest scientific discovery in human history? We have infinite time to perfect our understanding. Infinite iterations to test every variable. We're the luckiest scientists who ever lived. We're not living, Helen says from her corner. We're repeating. The distinction is semantic, Ben replies. Eric slams his hand on the table. The distinction is that people are suffering. Rodriguez won't leave her bunk because she remembers dying. Half the botanical team is afraid to eat because they remember the food poisoning that hasn't happened yet. Adjustment symptoms, Ben says dismissively. Once we accept our situation, I interrupt, is that in 13 days, something happens. The reset. Every log ends there. Every iteration stops. And then we forget everything and start over. Allegedly, Walker says. I pull up my tablet, show him the compilation I've been building. 7 complete cycles documented. Each one ends at Sol 21 with an energy spike and complete cessation of all logs. Then they resume on Sol 1 with no memory of previous iterations until the memories start bleeding through. Just like they are now. Walker examines the data. Dr. Carter, your theory. Can you predict what happens on Sol 21? Based on the energy readings, I believe it's a reset pulse from the FTL drive. It returns our consciousness to the initial state while preserving certain physical changes. It's elegant, really. Can you prevent it? Walker cuts him off. Ben hesitates. Prevent it? Why would we answer the question? Theoretically, if we could isolate the FTL drive from the base's power grid at the exact moment of the pulse. Ben trails off, his face clouding. But that would break the loop. We'd lose the phenomenon. We'd lose everything. We'd lose our chains, Eric says. We'd lose perfection, Ben counters. They stare at each other across the table, and I see the lines being drawn between philosophies. Ben sees paradise where others see prison. He's found God in our clockwork hell, and he'll protect his deity with the fervor of a convert. Enough, Walker says. Both of you. Until we have more data, we proceed with standard operations. No one touches the FTL drive. No one spreads panic. And Dr. Foster, he turns to me, you focus on keeping this crew functional. That's an order. He leaves, taking the security team with him. Ben follows shortly after, humming to himself, already lost in calculations. Helen slips out without a word, her sketches abandoned on the table. Eric and I sit in the empty rec room. He's going to stop us, Eric says finally. Ben. He's going to protect the loop. I know. I pick up the reactor component. The logs mention sabotage, systems failing when we try to break free. I always assumed it was the loop itself resisting, but maybe it's Ben. Eric takes the component back, turning it over in his hands. David, I need to tell you something. I've been remembering more. Not just fragments, but whole conversations. In past loops, you and I, we work together. We always work together. You figure out the what, I figure out the how. And do we succeed? He's quiet for a moment. I don't remember that part, but I remember trying. Again and again we try. Maybe that's all we can do, I say. Try. Even if we're doomed to fail and forget, at least we try. Eric stands, the component under his arm. Then we'd better start planning. 13 days isn't much time, especially if Ben's actively working against us. As he leaves, I remain in the empty room, staring at Helen's abandoned sketches. Each drawing of the base is slightly different. A door in a different place. A corridor that doesn't exist. Windows where there should be walls. She's drawing all the versions she remembers, all the iterations bleeding together. I pick up her pencil and add a detail to one of the drawings. A small figure standing at an airlock, hand on the manual override. I don't know why I draw it, only that my hand knows the motion, knows the precise angle of the figure's shoulders, the way their head tilts forward in resignation or determination. It's Walker. Commander Walker at the airlock on Sol 21 moments before the reset. I know this. I remember that he'll stand there and make a choice that... The memory fractures, slips away like water through fingers. But the drawing remains. Evidence of something I'm not supposed to know yet. Sol 15. The base has become a psychiatric ward where the patients run the asylum. I find Rodriguez in the greenhouse, watering plants that don't exist yet, tears streaming down her face as she tends to empty soil beds. "They'll be so beautiful," she tells me. "The tomatoes especially. We're beautiful. We'll be beautiful." She can't stop crying. Can't stop watering nothing. Half the crew has stopped reading the logs. The other half can't stop reading them, searching for some deviation, some proof that this iteration is different. It never is. Evans tried to kill himself yesterday by walking into the Martian night without a suit. The airlock wouldn't open. Not malfunction, not locked. It simply wouldn't open for him. As if the loop itself refused to permit a death that wasn't in the script. I document everything. Dissociative episodes, temporal dysphoria, causal paranoia. I'm inventing terms for conditions that won't exist anywhere but here, in this 21-day prison we've built for ourselves. Eric finds me in medical, where I'm reviewing brain scans that show neural patterns from memories that haven't formed yet, synaptic connections that reference experiences we don't remember having. "We need to move tonight," he says without preamble, Ben's accelerating his timeline. I follow him through the base, past the observation window where Mars stretches out red and infinite, and utterly indifferent to our circular nightmare. In engineering, Eric's assembled what he calls his conspiracy. Himself, me, Navigator Yun, and surprisingly Larson. On the workbench is a collection of components I recognize but shouldn't. Pieces of an FTL field destabilizer that we haven't built yet. "Ben's been visiting the reactor room at night," Larson says, "running calculations on the FTL drive's resonance frequency. I tracked his access logs. He's trying to protect the loop, make it permanent." Eric pulls up a schematic on his tablet. He's planning to synchronize the base's power grid with the FTL field at the moment of reset. Instead of wiping our memories and starting over, it would lock us into a single, eternal moment. We'd be conscious, but frozen, experiencing Sol 21 forever. "Paradise," Yun says bitterly. His version of it anyway. "We have 6 days," Eric continues. "I can build a disruptor that might break the loop entirely, but we need to install it directly on the FTL drive, and Ben's watching everything now." "What about Walker?" I ask. "Walker is..." Larson pauses, choosing words carefully. "Compromised. He's been meeting with Ben privately. I think he's starting to agree that maintaining stability is better than risking chaos." I remember the flash. Walker at the airlock. The resignation in his shoulders. "No, Walker isn't compromised. He's planning something else." "What?" Eric asks. But the memory slips away. "I'll handle Walker," I say. "You focus on the disruptor. How long do you need?" 48 hours to build it. Maybe 20 minutes to install, if we can get to the drive." "The logs," Yun says suddenly. "Do they say anything about this conversation? About our plan?" We all check our tablets simultaneously, scrolling through Sol 15's entries. There's nothing about this meeting. Nothing about Eric's disruptor. For the first time in 2 weeks, we're off script. "How is that possible?" Larson asks. I think about my conscious choice to not say the scripted words to Walker, the small deviation that seemed to cascade. Maybe the loop isn't perfect. Maybe it only records what it expects. The intercom activates, Dr. Foster to the command module, priority 1. I find Walker standing at the main console with Ben, and my heart sinks. Displayed on the screen is security footage from 10 minutes ago, our meeting in engineering. Conspiracy to sabotage mission-critical equipment, Walker says without turning around. That's a court-martial offense, Doctor. There won't be a court-martial, I reply. In 6 days, we forget everything and start over. How is that not the bigger crime? Ben turns to face me, and there's something wrong with his expression. Not angry or triumphant, but beatific, like a prophet who's seen the face of God. You still don't understand, he says. The loop isn't our prison, it's our chrysalis. We're becoming something new, something that exists outside linear time. We're becoming insane, I counter. Sanity is a temporal construct, Ben replies. When you experience all time simultaneously, the concept becomes meaningless. Walker finally turns around. Dr. Carter has convinced me that attempts to break the loop could be catastrophic. Not just for us, but for Earth. If the FTL field collapses incorrectly, it could send a causal shockwave back along our trajectory. That's theoretical, I start. Everything here is theoretical. Walker snaps, his composure finally cracking. But I won't risk Earth on the chance that you're right and Ben's wrong. So you'll condemn us to this? I gesture around the base. Rodriguez watering phantom plants. Half the crew catatonic by Sol 20. I'll maintain order, Walker says. Starting now. Dr. Foster, you're confined to quarters. Your access to all systems is revoked. Security will escort you. 2 guards step forward, Bailey and Okonkwo. I know them, trained with them, but their faces are carefully neutral, following orders, following the script, even if this scene isn't in it. As they escort me out, I catch Ben adjusting something on his tablet. The screen shows a power grid diagram, and I recognize the modifications he's making. Not to preserve the loop, but to intensify it. To burn it so deep into space-time that it becomes permanent, inescapable. Ben, I call back. The logs say you die on Sol 21, right before the reset. You're at the FTL drive and something goes wrong. He doesn't look up. The logs say a lot of things. But they were written by versions of us who didn't understand what we were becoming. Bailey's hand on my shoulder guides me forward, but I resist for one more moment. What if you're wrong? What if we're not becoming something better? What if we're just ending? Now he looks at me, and for just a second, I see fear flicker behind the certainty. Then we end perfectly, he says. Again and again. Forever. The guards march me to my quarters. As the door seals behind me, I hear the lock engage. I'm trapped. Eric's conspiracy is exposed. Ben's plan is accelerating. But I still have my tablet, and buried in my personal files is something I wrote 3 loops ago according to the metadata. A message from a version of me who got further than this, who learned something crucial. The file is titled, When Everything Else Fails. I open it. Inside is a single line. Trust Walker at the airlock. He remembers everything. Sol 21. 2 hours until the reset. They released me this morning, not out of mercy but necessity. Half the crew is catatonic, the other half violent or delusional. Walker needs every functional person just to keep the base operational. The botanical team sealed themselves in the greenhouse and refused to come out. Medical is overwhelmed with people experiencing what I've termed temporal seizures. Their consciousness stuttering between iterations like a record skipping. Ben has barricaded himself in the reactor room with the FTL drive, implementing his modifications. The security team won't stop him. They're following Walker's orders, but Walker himself has been missing for 6 hours. I find Eric in the main corridor, his disruptor in pieces around him. Someone, probably Ben's supporters, smashed it during the night shift. His hands are bleeding from trying to salvage the components. It's over, he says. Even if I could rebuild it, we'd never get past Ben's defenses. Where's Walker? Command module. Been locked in there since... I run through the base, past the chaos. Rodriguez is in the mess hall, serving meals to people who aren't there. Thompson has covered his quarters' walls with letters to his daughter, hundreds of them, all saying goodbye. The observation deck is full of crew members standing perfectly still, staring at Mars, waiting for something they can't name. The command module door is sealed, but my override still works. Inside, I find him at his personal terminal, surrounded by printouts of every log, every iteration, every recorded loop. His service pistol is on the desk. "It's not for me," he says without turning around. "The gun. It's for Ben, if necessary." "Commander. Mark," he corrects. "Just Mark now. Rank doesn't mean much when you're living in a Mobius strip." He finally turns, and his eyes are clear, focused. He taps his temple. "I don't forget. That's my curse in this place. Every loop, everyone else gets wiped clean, but I remember all of it. 7 complete iterations of watching my crew descend into madness. That's impossible. The logs say what I let them say." He pulls up his personal file. "I've been editing them, removing any mention of my continued memory. Do you know why?" I shake my head. "Because in loop 4, when the crew found out I remembered everything, they turned on me, demanded I fix it. When I couldn't, Bailey shot me. In loop 5, I tried to warn everyone from day 1. The panic was immediate. We lost 12 people in 3 days." His voice is steady, matter of fact, the way you'd discuss weather patterns. "So now I pretend. I follow the script. I maintain order as long as possible." "But you know how to break it." "No, but I know who does." He stands, checks his chronometer. "Helen, she's the key." "Helen, the pilot." "She's not just a pilot." Walker pulls up a classified file. "She's SpaceX's insurance policy. Augmented. Neural implants designed to interface directly with the FTL drive. They didn't tell anyone, not even her. The implants are dormant until activated by a specific field resonance, the reset pulse. Activates her connection to the drive. For a few seconds at the moment of reset, she becomes part of the loop's control system. She could break it from the inside. Ben will finish his modifications. The loop will begin to crystallize, become permanent. I'll confront him at the FTL drive. We'll fight. He'll trigger an early reset to stop me. And in that moment, that one crucial moment, Helen will be connected to the system. And you need me to reach her, to tell her what to do." Walker nods. "I've tried 7 different approaches. Direct confrontation, subtle manipulation, elaborate preparations, nothing works. But this time, you're off script. You and Eric broke the pattern. That's never happened before." An explosion rocks the base. Through the window, I see a flash from the reactor room. Ben started his final sequence early. "Go." Walker shoves his access card into my hand. "Get to Helen. She'll be in the observation deck drawing. She always is at this time. Tell her about the implants. Tell her she's the only one who can save us." "What about you?" Walker loads his pistol, his face set with the exhaustion of a man who's played out this scenario too many times. "I'm going to buy you time. Same as always. Except this time." He meets my eyes. This time might be different. I run through the base as it tears itself apart. The crew has finally snapped. Some trying to reach the FTL drive to stop Ben, others defending him with religious fervor. The lights flicker as Ben reroutes power. The temperature drops as life support stutters. In the observation deck, Helen sits alone, sketching. Her drawings cover the floor, hundreds of them, all showing the same thing. A vast spiral of light with the base at its center, and tiny figures caught in the curves, repeating endlessly. "Helen." I kneel beside her. "I need you to listen. You have neural implants. SpaceX built you to interface with the FTL drive." She doesn't look up from her drawing. I know. I've always known. Part of me anyway. The part that dreams. She adds another figure to her spiral. "Every night I dream of being the loop, of being time itself, folded and refolded. And every morning I forget, until the next dream. You can break it. During the reset I can end us all." She finally looks at me, and her eyes are ancient, exhausted. Or I can free us. But I won't know which until I do it. That's why I never try. 7 loops of being too afraid to choose. Another explosion. The lights cut out entirely, replaced by emergency power. In the distance, gunfire. Walker has reached the reactor room. This time is different, I tell her urgently. We're off script. This conversation isn't in the logs. Maybe that means the choice is finally real. Helen stands, her drawings scattering. Or maybe it means this is how it always ends, and we just forget. Through the observation window, a devouring light begins to emanate from the reactor room. Ben's crystallization field expanding. In minutes, it will engulf everything, lock us forever in a single, eternal moment. Helen walks to the window, places her hand on the glass. Tell me, David, if you could choose eternal repetition or complete oblivion, which would you pick? Before I can answer, the reset begins. Helen is glowing, her implants finally fully active. She turns to me, no longer just Helen, but something more, something connected to the fundamental structure of our prison. Choose, she says, but it's not her voice anymore. It's the loop itself speaking through her. Choose for all of us. The light expands from Helen until she's not a person but a doorway, and through that doorway I can see it all, every iteration laid out like frames of film. 7 loops of the same 21 days, each one ending here, ending now, ending with Ben's attempt to crystallize paradise, and Walker's bullet finding its mark, and Helen's moment of connection that never quite reaches the choice. Choose, the voice says again. And I understand now. Helen can't make this decision. She's become the mechanism, not the operator. The loop needs someone outside itself to break the recursion. I see Ben in the reactor room, his body convulsing as his own crystallization field tears him apart, still smiling because he's touching his beautiful equation even as it kills him. I see Walker standing over him, gun still raised, the weight of 7 iterations of this moment crushing him. I see the crew throughout the base, some catatonic, some screaming, some praying to gods they haven't believed in since leaving Earth. And I see what Ben never understood. The loop is degrading us. Each iteration is slightly less stable than the last. Eventually, maybe in the next loop, maybe in 10 more, the degradation will be complete. We won't reset anymore. We'll simply stop existing. Break it, I tell Helen. Tell the loop, tell whatever's listening. End the repetition. Even if... Helen's voice fractures through the cosmic noise. Even if it means losing everything? The base, the supplies, the perfect landing? We never had those things, I say. They were always part of the loop. Break it, let us start real. Helen nods and reaches into the light. The base screams, metal groaning as causality reasserts itself. The walls begin to fade like a photo left in the sun. I watch my office dissolve, my notes scatter into nothing. Walker appears beside me, and for a moment his face shows relief so profound, it looks like grief. Finally, he whispers. Finally. A different ending. The dissolution accelerates. The base collapses into possibility, into never was. Helen burns brighter, her implants overloading, her human form barely containing whatever she's become. Remember. Walker grabs my shoulder as the floor beneath us becomes translucent. When we wake up, I'll be the only one who remembers this. You'll all be free. But I'll remember everything, and I'll have to pretend I don't. It's the only way to... The Janus shudders through final descent, and my stomach briefly considers relocating to my throat. On my screens, the neural feeds of the crew show standard excitement mixed with terror. Exactly what you'd expect for humanity's first crewed landing on Mars. Visual contact in 10 seconds, Helen announces from the pilot's seat, her voice steady despite her white knuckles on the control stick. Visual contact, she says 10 seconds later, and there's something in her voice. Relief? Disappointment? I unstrap myself, which is definitely against protocol, but Walker is leaning forward and doesn't stop me. The viewport is small, but I can see enough. Red horizon, rust-colored regolith, the massive shadow of Olympus Mons in the distance. Empty Mars stretches before us, barren and waiting. Landing site confirmed clear, Helen reports. We're go for touchdown. The Janus settles onto the Martian surface with barely a tremor. Ladies and gentlemen, Walker says, and his voice cracks slightly. Exhaustion maybe, or emotion. Welcome to Mars. Now let's get to work. As the crew erupts in celebration, I catch Walker's reflection in my monitor. For just a second, his expression is not celebratory but haunted. Then he blinks, and it's gone, replaced by the confidence of a commander with a job to do. We suit up for our first EVA to plant the flag and begin surveying for the base we'll build with our own hands. As I check Helen's suit seals, she pauses. I had the strangest dream during descent, she says, like I was everywhere at once. Just the stress, I tell her, though something touches my spine. It'll pass. Outside, Mars waits for us, empty, honest, ours to build on or fail on. Walker is first out, his boots making the first human prints on Martian soil. Houston, he radios. Janus base here. We've landed safely. Beginning construction of humanity's first permanent settlement on Mars. A 14-minute pause before Earth can even hear us. 14 minutes of silence and possibility. We have work to do.